will I play as long as I go number one in the draft?
From the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
From the London Knights, Mitch Marner.
From the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Nolan Patrick.
This is Tracking the Draft with Craig Button.
He checks an enormous amount of boxes. Nobody in this draft did more with less. I absolutely love him. It's not his skills that anybody's concerned about. It's that playing attitude. And quite frankly, it's really poor.
Speeding towards the future of the NHL.
From the U.S. Development Program, Jacob Truba.
From Färjestad of the Swedish Elite League, Jonas Brodin.
From the Boston U Terriers, Brady Tkachuk.
He could play in the NHL next year. He's one of those guys.
Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 13 of season 2 of Tracking the Draft with Craig Button. The director of scouting for TSN will be along very shortly. My name is Dean Millard, and this is where the stars of tomorrow are discovered. We're going to have a goalie edition. I am so excited about that. Jesper Wallstedt, Sebastian Cossa of the Oil Kings, Triston Lennox, and a free agent from college, Dryden Mckay, we will be chatting about today. We're also going to discuss what's going on with CHL players in the NHL, some expansion in the NHL and the UFHL that we can tell you about, and we'll chat about a few NHL rookies making their mark. One very early, Trevor Zegras, that shootout goal he scored. Whew, that was a wicked, wicked shot. So all of that still to come with Craig, who joins us courtesy of the UFFS hotline. Yes, the ultimate franchise fantasy sports platform is the most realistic out there. You can become a scout, or you can become a GM of a team. We do have an expansion franchise auction going on right now. We'll tell you all about that as we go. But scouting is so important. So you can become a scout. You can track the same players that Craig Button does. UFFsports.com, or follow us on our league Twitter handle at UFH League. So there you go. That is how we do things here on Tracking the Draft. And without further ado, let's get into it, shall we?
Here he is, the director of scouting for TSN, former GM of the Calgary Flames, and a Stanley Cup champion with the Dallas Stars. Plus, he's a sharp-dressed man with a heart of gold and a passion to match it. Craig Button.
Okay, Craig, an exciting day here on Tracking the Draft. I'm very excited because it's kind of the goalie edition. Like, this is like how you get excited when we do the Michigan edition. For me, this is my Michigan because we're talking about goalies, and certainly some talented goalies in this year's draft as well.
Absolutely, there are. And we're going to talk about three of them, and plus a college free agent that, in my view, is the best college free agent available. And that's not surprising. A little bit older goaltender, has been able to hone his techniques and his technique and his skills and, perform exceptionally well. So we talk about all the time the importance of goaltending. So if you don't draft them, you're always going to be looking to find them either in a trade or whatnot. So there's some good ones in this draft.
Indeed. And let's start with a guy who high-level scouting, which of course you do such a great job with us. We grabbed him in the entry auction, and that's Jesper Wallstedt, a goaltender who plays for Luleå in the SHL, and we paid big bucks for him in that auction because I really believe in this guy. And for him to pay off in that scenario, he has to go as high as Askarov or higher. Is that a realistic possibility when you look back at last year's draft? And I think he went 11th.
Yeah. Yaroslav Askarov went 11th. The year before, Spencer Knight went 13th, and I think Jesper Wallstedt is in the same category of goaltender and goaltending potential. He's got all the requisite skills. The mobility, the lateral quickness. Moving in and around the net. The quickness in his arms and his legs. To make the saves. He's got excellent sense with respect to reading the play and understanding where the challenges are going to come from. And, you not only have to be quick in your movements, you got to be quick in your mind. And Jesper has a quick mind, and he's very capable of processing very quickly where he has to get to close down the net and to ensure that the player that's trying to shoot the puck and get it into the net has less net to look at rather than more. And you do that by not only reading the overall play, you also do it by anticipating. You also understand who's dangerous, who's not dangerous. So when we talk about goaltender IQ, Jesper Wallstedt's IQ as a goaltender is outstanding. And, one of the things that I've always really admired about him, and at times you don't see this with younger goaltenders, he's got a real calmness to his game. He's got a real, what I call a quiet. There's not a lot of unnecessary movement. He moves kind of economically, but it doesn't mean he doesn't move quickly. And a lot of times he makes things look extremely, extremely easy because of the hockey sense and because of his economy of movement. And, we watched Henrik Lundqvist for a long time. And a lot of times, you take a Swedish goaltender, in this case Wallstedt, and you compare him to another Swedish goaltender. But I really believe that the way that Henrik played the position, he understood, angles, and he understood where he had to be. And a lot of times you looked at Henrik, he said, he plays a little bit deeper. But he played a little bit deeper because he had so much confidence in his quickness and so much confidence in his ability to read the play. I don't think that Jesper plays as deep, but he plays with the same sense of calm and the same sense of assuredness in the net that I think is a prerequisite for success at the National League level.
Well, it's amazing. Henrik Lundqvist just motivating a generation of Swedish goaltenders, and proving that it's not where you're drafted, it's where you go. But Wallstedt is definitely going to be drafted high. What do you think about the fact that he's playing in the SHL? I think Askarov only played one game in the KHL last year, and I'm not saying the SHL is on the same level as the KHL, but playing against men, how do you think that impacts maybe scouts and teams' view of him, that he's already been playing with men?
Well, here's what I would say. The Swedish Hockey League is an outstanding league. There's no question about it. And so the fact that Jesper is playing in the Swedish Hockey League at this age speaks volumes about his abilities. And when you can assess players that are playing at levels that are a little bit closer to the National Hockey League level, what it does is it gives you a lot more confidence in his ability to translate what he's doing now to the NHL. A junior goaltender at 17 or 18 years of age, he hasn't had the opportunity to test himself against higher competition with respect to pro leagues. And, that's ultimately what you're trying to do with respect to, assessing players and projecting potential. So when a player, shows and demonstrates that he's got a lot of ability to perform at levels that more replicate the NHL, darn right, it gives you a lot more confidence. And I think that it's also important for Jesper to feel that confidence that he can make the step. So it's not just for the scouts and looking at him and evaluating him and ultimately selecting him, because he's going to be selected. It's also going to help Jesper tremendously as he moves to the next levels out of the Swedish Hockey League.
All right, let's move on to a goaltender who's going to get underway Friday night. We're recording it on this Thursday. The WHL season is getting underway on Friday, and Sebastian Cossa, again, will be a big part of the Edmonton Oil Kings. He is with Edmonton. He's from Fort McMurray, and This is a guy that seems to have what every scout seems to crave when it comes to a goalie: size. He's 6'6", and I know that we talk about all the time, you don't scout with a tape measure, but being 6'6" for a goalie is an obvious plus for him, as long as he uses it to his advantage and isn't on his knees all the time. But having that size automatically makes scouts notice.
Well, it absolutely does. Just like if you see a 6'6" centerman or a 6'6" defenseman, it's hard not to notice them. But, Sebastian Cossa reminds me a lot of Jacob Markstrom. And, obviously Jacob is a big goaltender. And, it took Jacob some time to really find that level of technical expertise to perform at very well at the National League level, but there's no question that he's found that. I think Sebastian has a similar skill set. As you point out, it's not just about being tall, because if it was just about being tall, I'd go get a 7-foot guy as opposed to a 6'6" guy. But Sebastian moves. And as he physically develops, he's going to develop more strength and power in his legs. And as you develop more of that, you're going to be able to use your size to even greater advantage. And one of the things is when you watch Sebastian play, he doesn't break down his positioning when he moves. Part of that is coordination. He's a young player, and you have to expect that somebody 18 at that size is going to find the coordination, a little better coordination at 20 and better at 22. But also when I watch Sebastian is, as a goaltender, there's a certain amount of a base of technical skill that you need to have so that you can develop that, and as he develops the other parts of his game. I think he has that. I think he reads the game well. I think he competes well. I think his skill level is really good. And I think that as a goaltending development group and an NHL team's development group starts working with him, I think he's got terrific potential. And, Jacob Markstrom over the last couple of seasons has been one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. So when I compare Sebastian Cossa to Jacob Markstrom, I think he's got that kind of potential to be that kind of goalie.
Yeah, and you were seeing some of the kind of the warts maybe that Markstrom covered up in Vancouver. Now, with Sebastian of the Oil Kings, I've seen him as ranked as high as in the first round, early second round, mid-second round. Do you think he's a guy who could slip into the first round, or do you see him more as that early in the 33, 34, 35 selection area?
Yeah, and it bears repeating, Dean, is that a lot of times I look at 21 to 40 as all the same round.
Right.
You talk to teams that draft a player 34th and they go, well, we had him in our top 20, or, and that's a lot of times the case. So I don't really differentiate much between the 23rd pick and the 33rd pick. I know we always have to put an order in them. I look at him as a clear-cut number one goaltender in the National Hockey League. So to me, if that's what you want, then go and draft him. And so where does he fall exactly in the draft? I don't think he falls into the same level as Spencer Knight or Yaroslav Askarov or Jesper Wallstedt, but I definitely believe that he's right there next. He might, the next guy that we're going to talk about is the example, but as I talk about Jacob Markstrom, he was a second-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Took him some time. He got traded from Florida to Vancouver, found his way. And I think Sebastian is a little bit more advanced, and I think the resources available to him are a little bit different than Jacob had when he was younger. So I think that Sebastian will find his way to the National Hockey League a little bit early. But if you're, as my dear friend Tim Bernhardt, who I worked with for a long time and a former goaltender, always said, he goes, if you don't draft goaltenders, when you need them, how are you going to get them? And it's like any other position. What are you going to do, not draft defensemen? Well, at some point in time, you're going to need young defensemen. You're going to need young goaltenders. You're going to need young forwards. So if you don't draft them, how do you go and get them? Well, you can sign them as free agents. You can trade for them. But you're also reducing another opportunity by not drafting them. So when I see a goaltender that I think could be a number one goaltender, and I use a comparable like Jacob Markstrom, I'm not waiting to draft Sebastian Cossa.
Yeah, Markstrom went 2 picks into the second round, and when he was playing at around the World Juniors in Canada and Sweden, had those great legendary battles in that tournament, he was considered the best prospect not playing in the NHL. And you're right, it just took him a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Question for you: do you think goalies? I don't know if there's a position that is affected more by not being able to play right now when it comes to scouting. Do you think goalies would be in that category? Because some of them just haven't played that much. Maybe if they're on an older team and they're the backup.
Well, yeah, you're right. But one of the things that you're able to do is work on other aspects of your game. I always say this about goaltenders. And it's true of goaltenders at the NHL level. When you need to refine certain things and develop certain areas of your game, in the case of a younger goaltender, it's really hard to do it in games. What you need to do is refine that and work on it, in practice, out of the game situations. What you want to do is have the game situations as a test. But, and those tests are important to see where you stand and where you're at in that development curve. But a lot of your work is done outside of the game in terms of developing your technique and refining the different areas of your game that are necessary for success. So I think for goaltenders it might be just a little bit different than it is for skaters. Yes, the games are really important, but I think real essential work is done in the practices, and the games really serve as the test. It's like an exam in university, Dean. You know what? The exam is hard, but it's all the prep work, all the studying you do before the exam, which will determine how well you do on the exam. That's how I look at goaltending.
Very good analogy. All right, let's talk about Tristan Lennox for a second. Now, he's with Saginaw last year at the OHL. He's on the Toronto Marlies roster of the AHL, and that's a little bit strange. I don't think I've seen this before, but he has a late birthday. He wasn't eligible for last year's draft, but he is eligible to be on the AHL roster this year. I don't know if I've seen this before, but it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Well, NHL teams are allowed to have amateur players on tryouts. So, you can bring them in and put them on tryouts. We see lots of we see players that come in on tryouts. Now, the interesting thing is that Tristan, it's usually with undrafted free agents that you put in on tryouts. I've never seen a case where a player that's in his draft year that's obviously undrafted is able to do this. But there's allowances that have been made over the course of this year with the pandemic. So again, it goes back to practicing, right? It goes back to refining those skills and working on your technique. And I think for Tristan that's a really good opportunity for him to do exactly that. Tristan reminds me a lot of Mackenzie Blackwood at the same stage, and Mackenzie had a lot of really good, I don't want to say underdeveloped, and I don't want to say raw ability. He had, skills and ability that needed refinement. And I think that's the same thing with Tristan. I think Tristan has a lot of potential. I don't think he's going to be drafted in the first round. I could be wrong, but I think he like Mackenzie Blackwood, as a player that's going to be drafted in the top 50 picks, maybe top 40, and he's going to need some time. He's going to need some time to refine his game. But I see a lot of terrific elements in Tristan's game that can allow him, and again, I'm going to be very clear here, that can allow him to be a number one goaltender in the National Hockey League.
Well, and he's getting a good look at at least being around a pro environment. So it's it's like what we talked about with Wallstedt. He's just going to be facing stiffer competition, even if it's just in practice. It's going to benefit him.
Well, practice is important. For Tristan, he's going to face players that can shoot the puck at a different velocity with more accuracy than he's facing at the junior level. I go back in time a little bit, Dean, and they used to have it ran for 3 years. It was called the All-State All-Canadians, and it was put on in conjunction with the NHLPA, and they invited 42 of players across Canada in a certain age group. They were 15 at the time. And so these were the best players, and they came in, and the NHLPA did work with them, and Gary Roberts did work with them. At the end of it, they had skilled people working with them, and then TSN would broadcast a game, with the two teams, at the conclusion of the week. So being part of TSN, I was able to, have an inside look at what was going on with the drills and spend time with the players. We did work with them on media and talking to them, so it was really good. But this one year, Tyler Seguin, they always had NHLers they came in as guests and coached the team and went on the ice with them. And so these young goaltenders, 15-year-old kids, came were out there, and Tyler Seguin was there. So this one day, the goaltenders, a couple of these goaltenders were saying, "Tyler, shoot on us, shoot on us, shoot on us." Now these are kids that are at the top of their age group in terms of talent, and they've been identified, right? So Tyler stands there. So the one kid's in the net, the other kid's off to the side, and I'm standing right in the corner here. I'm watching, and so kid goes. So Tyler's probably 25 feet away, and he's in the slot, right? He says, "Okay, you ready?" And he says, and the kid in the net goes, yeah. So Tyler just, bang, it's in the top corner. The kid doesn't even move. And he can kind of just see him, right? Just, whoa. So Tyler goes, "Okay, watch my stick, read the puck off the stick." He goes, "Are you ready?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." Boom, top shelf, right again, right? And the kid is like, whoa. So anyway, third shot comes. Tyler goes, "Listen, watch my stick. Watch how the puck's coming off," right? He goes, "I'm going top glove again. So I'm going to tell you right now where I'm going, so you can't tell me you're not ready." He hits that top corner again, right? So now the other kid comes sliding across into the net, and the other kid skates past him. He goes, "Oh my God," he goes, "that is unbelievable." So it's a description of what you find out. How much harder the players shoot, how much more accurate they shoot, how they disguise their shot. So as we talk about Tristan and we talk about Jesper Wallstedt, these are really good, beneficial learning experiences for them to go through, just as it was for those two 15-year-olds. And they can all talk about how Tyler Seguin was shooting on them.
What an experience of a lifetime. Well, one guy who's he is facing older shooters because he's playing college hockey, and that's Dryden Mckay. We're going to talk about a free agent that'll be garnering a ton of attention. He's with Minnesota State in the WCHA, and this is the opposite of Sebastian Cossa we talked about. He's just 5'11", but he's a college free agent who's older, and he's leading the Mavericks. They're perfect in the WCHA play. It's just unbelievable the season they're having. So at 7 inches shorter than Cossa, how does he get it done? Maybe differently or similar, which proves that you don't have to be 6'6" to play the position anymore.
Well, so there's two things I would say here, right? So you have your size and you have your stature, and it is what it is. So how are you going to use that stature to the greatest effectiveness, right? I just talked to you about a 6'6" goaltender. If you open up and you have holes, it doesn't matter how tall you are. Mm-hmm. And if you're not as tall, how are you going to use those abilities? I think Dryden is a little bit taller than he's listed at right now, but he's got 8 shutouts. 8 shutouts. Okay, you look back at last year. You look back at the previous year. At some point in time, you have to start to say this isn't accidental. There's enough ability here for Dryden to take the next step, because to this point in time, he's not just demonstrating that he's capable. He's pretty much demonstrating that he's unbeatable. So now you're talking about a college free agent, right? Which I always say zero downside to signing European and college free agents, because number one, at this age, it's only a 2 or a 1 year contract. So now you get them into your system real quick. They're a little bit older. They're a little bit more ready to take advantage. And with what he's done at Minnesota State, I'll make the bet. I'll make the bet. I'll put him in. I'll see what he can do in the American Hockey League. Because as I just pointed out, you go back, he played in the USHL. The Madison Capitals were not a very good team, and his numbers were good there. And now he goes to Minnesota State. Oh, wait a sec. He keeps doing this. I'll tell you a story about Eddie Belfort. Eddie Belfort in his draft year was playing in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. And so the draft at that time, I think it was about 12 rounds long. And so, I mean, we had scouts everywhere along the line. And, the subject of Ed Belfort came up, and our regional scouts, were asking about Ed. Like, nah, he's not good enough, not going to be drafted. Yeah. 12 rounds. We're talking 12 rounds here. Okay, so which is fine, and you trust your people. It's not about right or wrong, right? He goes to North Dakota. So this is right after the draft in June, the previous year, watching, trying to understand, and you have to trust your regional scouts. I mean, if you don't need them, but you trust them, and it's good. I mean, nobody drafted him, just for the record. So it wasn't like somebody drafted him and we were on it. It's just, hey, what do we do? Draft is in June. The next season starts at North Dakota. And I'm telling you, it's about the end of October. And we got regional scouts. Oh, you better sign this Eddie Belfort. He looks like the real deal. We're laughing. We're going like, we could have dropped. But, hindsight is always great, D. And sometimes we look back on it in the shoulda, coulda, woulda. But at the same time, the recognition came that he was good, and all the teams, no team drafted him, and we all know that Eddie Belfort is a Hall of Famer and one of the top goaltenders of his era in the NHL. So what I'm saying is Dryden Mckay might only be 6 foot, he might be 5'11" and a half, he might be 6 foot and a half, right? All I know is, as a college free agent, based on what he has done, I don't see a better college free agent to sign right now than Dryden Mckay.
Well, it's amazing. He has 8 shutouts this year. He had 10 last year. He has 22 shutouts, and his sophomore the junior season isn't even over yet. I mean, it's just incredible. And I guess I wonder when you're signing a guy. A lot of times we've seen these college free agents go from college right to the NHL. Do you think he could use some time in the AHL? Do you think he could step in and possibly be a 1B with the team, or maybe even a 1A? I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think he needs to go and play in the American Hockey League. And, again, we talk about testing yourself out against the next competition. And the reason that I think it's important for him is that as he's progressed, USHL, college, so he's clearly demonstrated that he's capable. Why have him skip a step? Just have him go there and let him get his feet wet there and continue to demonstrate that what you've seen and why you've signed him, that he's going to be able to take advantage. I want to set up a goaltender for success. And I want to set up everybody for success for that matter, not just a goaltender. But, why skip a step? Like, he hasn't skipped a step along the way, and he continues to have these successes. Why do you want to now jump the queue, so to speak, and risk him having the best success he can be? I know there's no guarantees. I just know that watching him play, that I'm making a bet on him.
Okay, so speaking of the American Hockey League, the CHL gets started. Well, the WHL in the Alberta division is going to start on Friday. I know you didn't like my special exemption idea from the CHL to the AHL, but what are your thoughts on CHLers right now in the AHL going back to their CHL clubs for this season?
Yeah, and the reason I don't like the exemption idea, there's going to be 32 players that are going to be taken out of the CHL.
Right.
And, and I think that ultimately hurts development and puts a real stressor on development all the way through the system. And, I'm a big believer for the most part that if you're not ready to play in the NHL, the American Hockey League can be incredibly, incredibly demanding in different ways. I'm not suggesting that certain players can't play at that level or haven't shown an aptitude, but all in all, on an overall philosophy, I don't think it's right. But that's mine, and I'm sure other people have good reasons why they would look at it differently. Now, as it relates, you have these young players that have been playing in the American Hockey League. And, Seth Jarvis, Jamie Drysdale, Peyton Krebs. I mean, I'm just naming a few of them that have played pretty well. And, the American Hockey League is different this year. I know the American Hockey League is trending younger and everything that goes with it. But, they've been entrenched in an environment now of practice and playing and adapting to it and adjusting to that level. And in the case of the three players I just mentioned, doing very, very well. But we shouldn't be surprised. They're all first-round draft picks, right? Why should we be surprised that any of those three players are doing well? I, in my own belief, in my own feelings, would just leave them there. I would just leave them there. Jamie Drysdale doesn't have to make that decision now. Seth Jarvis doesn't have to quarantine, as far as I know, coming back to Portland. Peyton Krebs has to quarantine for 14 days. He's losing 14 days of work that he's put in over a period of time that has helped him have success. And now you're going to put him at you're going to put him at a lower level where the whole environment is different. It's the environment of the players he's playing with and against. For the most part, those players haven't played. What does that mean for Peyton Krebs, and what does that mean for his development? And I know we talk about it, we say it's a business and we know what the agreement is, but you're not selling tickets. You're not selling tickets. So, I think it's really important for the teams in the CHL, the junior A leagues, to get up and playing for the vast majority of other players so that they can get themselves playing, competing, training, so that they're ready for next season. I really do believe that that's what the focus has got to be, and that's why I would just let be what's been done and make sure that I focus it on the 99% of my other players that are coming back to play.
Well, Craig joins us courtesy of the UFFS hotline. Scouting is a huge part of the platform and the lifeblood of franchises in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. Any free agent goes through a scout. So if you want to get in the game where you own the game and start putting your scouting talent to good use, become an independent scout or form a partnership with an existing franchise. Reach out for more information at UFH League on Twitter. And that brings us to a pretty big event going on right now, not only in the NHL, but we already know who owns that franchise. We are auctioning off a 30-second franchise in the UFHL, just like the NHL. So you can go to @ExpansionUFHL on Twitter. Last time I checked, Craig, $2,550 was the bid, and it closes on Monday, March 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern. And this is going to be, as you know, this is probably going to be the last bit of expansion for the NHL in a long time, which means it's the last bit of expansion for us. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do you see if you think Seattle is going to be able to make out as well as Vegas did, or do you think NHL teams maybe learned their lesson by giving up such good players?
Well, when we look at expansion, and everybody's going to have an expectation that perhaps the Seattle Kraken should be as successful as the Vegas Golden Knights were coming into the league. But there's a number of very different scenarios and situations that Seattle's dealing with that Vegas didn't have to deal with. So what's one of them? You just touched on it. The NHL teams all have the benefit of having gone through that expansion, right? So, hopefully they learn from the errors of their ways, errors, depending on how many you made. But there was a number of teams that made, some significant mistakes. And the Vegas Golden Knights, jumped all over it and took full advantage, which is what you have to expect that the Seattle Kraken are going to try to do as well. Number two, a number of the situations that occurred with Vegas were because teams had got themselves into cap problems, salary cap situations, right? Well, guess what, Dean? Some of the NHL teams are still in salary cap problems. So are the Seattle Kraken going to be able to take advantage of some scenarios? Yeah, absolutely they are. 3, we are dealing with a flat cap. Because of the pandemic and what's going forward here with respect to revenues and what's been agreed upon between the NHL and the NHLPA with respect to the salary cap, that's flat. So that's going to create some different opportunities for the Seattle Kraken. One of the things they don't have an advantage of is they haven't been able to have the same volume of observations on players, since last March. Yeah, I'm talking about NHL players. I'm talking about American Hockey League players specifically. Who is the William Karlsson out there? Who is that guy? Who is that player that you really feel has potential and that you can pull out of there and try to assess that and put them into your team? I think that's something that makes it a little bit more difficult for the Seattle Kraken. They have lots of observations. They have lots of very skilled and talented scouts and lots of great leadership with Ron Francis, but you still have a gap there, and so that gap is going to be different. That gap is going to present different challenges for the Seattle Kraken. And again, how Vegas came into the league and what they were able to do and how they were able to take advantage. Seattle will be able to take advantage in some of those same instances, and there's some that they won't. But I think where Seattle ultimately is positioning themselves is, hey, listen, we want to be competitive. We want to be good. I think that goes without saying. But it's also about building and building and building. And it's not about being a team that wins 14 games in expansion. It's going to be about being a competitive team and ensuring that they're building for the future. Because this is a long-term objective. The short-term matters, and they're going to address it. But I think that, given everything that occurred with the Vegas Golden Knights, similar opportunities are going to present themselves for Seattle, and they're going to be able to take advantage of a flat salary cap that Vegas didn't have an advantage of. So there could be more teams in the salary cap problem than Vegas had, which would ostensibly lead to more opportunities. So, who's to say that they can be as good? Maybe they have a chance to be better. That's pretty hard to do. They'd have to win the cup in their first year, right?
Yeah, that would be pretty impressive. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch. It's also going to be fun to watch and see what the expansion franchise sells for in our league. Over $2,500. It tells you that this is high stakes, high rewards fantasy gameplay that we're all involved here. And that's great to see. We're going to have to go through the expansion draft as well and, worry about players getting taken away. But that's the beauty of our league, is it mimics everything about the NHL. So you feel like you're really in it. And thanks to you, we get a lot of knowledge and help when it comes to our scouting base anyway.
Well, I'm thrilled to be part of it. But you know what, Trish, all she has to do, and we have to remind her of this, is that you only need to lose one player.
That's right.
Kenny Holland. Right. He kept telling George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon, as hard as they tried, as much as they phoned him and said, we're going to take this guy, what will you do here? Kenny kept saying, we're going to put our protected list in and you're going to be able to choose one player. And they would phone him again and he would say, we're going to put our protected list in and you'll be. The teams that got themselves into trouble were the ones that, we got to do this. We'll give you two players. And like I said, Vegas tried with Kenny and Kenny said, we're going to put our protected list in and you can take one player. You only have to lose one player.
Yeah, that's right.
It is,
isn't
it?
All right, quickly, let's wrap up. I'm going to give you a choice of who you want to talk about for NHL rookies that have been impressive. And I know some of them have only been in the league a very, very short time this year, but Bowen Byram, Trevor Zegras, or Kirill Kaprizov, all three have been very, very exciting to watch this year.
Well, Zegras is just early in his career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a fantastic player. And, you look at the Anaheim Ducks, who are really struggling to score. I think Trevor Zegras is a player that they need to get right in there and let him play, and he'll help them with their offensive woes. But, he's only played a couple of games, so it's hard to put him in any type of leaderboard for Rookie of the Year. Kaprizov, I don't think there's any surprise that he's come over here and been a really good player. He's had massive success in the KHL and on the international stage, and he's carrying that over here to the National Hockey League, and a real top end player. The other player I would say that you didn't mention is Ty Smith with the New Jersey Devils, who I think has had a really, really good start to his NHL career. I like, the poise, the intelligence, the puck play that he gives to a team has been significant for the New Jersey Devils. And so I think that he has been, amongst the best rookies in the league this year, and certainly somebody that deserves every consideration at the top end of the rookie, I guess, best rookies in the league at this point in time. So, a little bit of patience as you start out, but I mean, he is definitely one player that I don't think he's being overlooked, but I think he needs a little bit more PR pumping.
Indeed, it's an interesting year with playing everybody in their own divisions. I just can't wait to get to the playoffs when teams can face off against other teams, and we'll see some of these young players hopefully making an impact. Thank you so much as always, Craig, and we'll chat next week as we continue to track the 2021 draft.
Yeah, we will. Thanks, Dean. Have a great day.
This is a serious message.
Craig Button joins us on the Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports Hotline. Become a scout and make money while providing prospects to the Ultimate Franchise Hockey League.
What you talking about, mister?
Pay that man his money.
I'm your huckleberry.
Check out the details at www.uffsports.com.
It's serious.
I like it a lot.
I said we got a winner.
UFFS. You own the game.
So much fun when I get to chat with Craig Button and his passion and his knowledge. And throughout the year, we do something called Craig's Council. We'll do a full show. We'll get scouting tips and story time with Craig. And then we'll do that at the end of the year to wrap it up as well. So if you have a question, email it. trackingthedraft@gmail.com, and we will add it to the list of topics that have already received it. This is going to be really good for those on the scouting platform in the UFFS, whether you're scouting for the UFHL or maybe you're doing some AHL scouting in the UFAHL. These tips and stories and just different things, they'll benefit you. Or if you want to get into scouting, if you have a specific question, email us, trackingthedraft@gmail.com. And we are really excited about the launch of the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. UFSN is on the air. We're going to have lots of different programming. We are looking for those. If you want to join us, email us at ufsn@uffsports.com. Hit us up with an email, and if you have a fantasy show that you'd like to get on the network, we'd love to chat. So hit us up at ufsn@uffsports.com. All right, that is going to wrap things up for us on this program. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, please like it, and hit that bell on YouTube, and you'll get a notice every time we put a show up. It's so much fun. If you'd like to advertise on this program and join us, it's trackingthedraft@gmail.com. And if you're looking for other podcasts, check out podcastalley.ca, where I have a number of different shows from the sports to cannabis education. A big thanks to you, the listener and the viewer, for tuning in every week. And of course, thanks to Mr. Craig Button for his passion, his knowledge, and his time. That is going to wrap things up for us on this episode. We're back again at our regularly scheduled time of Wednesdays. Unfortunately, with the Claude Julien situation, Craig was just way too busy on Wednesdays, so we'll hopefully get back to Wednesday next week. Big thanks to Craig Button. My name is Dean Millard. This has been Tracking the Draft, where the stars of tomorrow are discovered. See you next week.